Hi everyone, I'm Shane Stephenson, Director of Museum Collections and Curator here at the Buffalo Naval Park. And for today's video, we're going to be taking a walk along the promenade. And I'm going to be pointing out all the different decorations, awards, and flags that you can see as you walk down the promenade here at the Buffalo Naval Park. Alright, it's a nice sunny day here today. And I'm standing at the west entrance. Alright, so the west entrance, you can always tell because it has this big 12,000-pound anchor from the port side of Uss Little Rock, and it's mounted behind me. And this is the entrance here, and you'll get a nice shot of all of the bows of our three vessels. All right, so we estimate that about 350,000 people walk by our promenade every year, every season, and obviously we get about 65 to 70,000 visitors who come on board. But if you're not one of those people that come on board, at least you'll be the talk of the town and the belle of the ball, because you'll be able to describe everything that you see to your friends and family when you walk down. Alright, so let's start here at the bow of the Croaker, and away we go. So the first thing that you'd see on USS Croaker is this sonar dome. Alright, in her original Gato configuration, she had a bow more like any surface ship. Nice and smooth to cut through the water. But here, they've added this rather bulbous sonar dome right on the front of the bow. So in her original configuration, as with all Gatos, they had a sonar dome by the keel, underneath the submarine itself. And in the 1953 conversion to SSK, Hunter-Killer conversion, they've added it right on the front, right on the bow of the submarine. So after World War II, the Americans were caught off guard with the growth of this Soviet submarine force. And so they took 6 or 7 of these old diesel electric boats, Gato class, and about 6 or 7 Baleo class diesel electric, and converted them into this SSK conversion. And they moved from the bottom of the keel, the sonar dome, up to the front here. And her patrols in the Atlantic were kind of small areas, but they would lie in wait. All right, and they would be able to, using this sonar dome, they'd be able to get long range, active and passive sonar to track those Russian submarines as they were coming out of the North Atlantic. Let's continue on forward. Now we're at the subsail of USS Croaker. Again, in her SSK conversion, they changed the bridge. All right, it was a low bridge. There was a cigarette deck, weather deck on those Gato classes. They converted it to make it a little more streamlined and a little more quiet. So the goal was to quiet the sub after her conversion. And I'd like to point out 2 things on the subsail herself. There's the Croaker scoreboard, and of course her hull number and her ribbons. All right, so I'm going to be talking about each of those individually. So let's zoom in and get a close-up. All right, so here's the USS Croaker's World War II scoreboard. All right, what you see is a lot of different Japanese ships. We got the traditional, what we call a meatball flag, and then we have the sun with the rays on them. And then you'll see 2 swallowtails and a kangaroo. Alright, so the U.S. submarine fleet philosophy during World War II was you wage war against the material that could wage war against you. Alright, so the meatball flag, or the traditional Japanese flag as we know it today, are merchant ships or auxiliary vessels. Those would be, ships of replenishment, ships with equipment on them, planes, tanks, other material to wage war against the U.S. Navy. So our philosophy was you take out those vessels that wage war against you, and then you eventually win the war. The flags with the rays on them, those are actual capital or military vessels that could kill you. Alright, and then you'll see in this right-hand corner, right there, you'll see two flags with a black jagged line, and those are what I like to call the disputed flags. Alright, so the USS Croaker World War II crew claimed these two ships, but the official Navy record did not include them. So they still painted them on their scoreboard, but they drew the black jagged line through them to say that those are the disputed sinkings. So in total, based on the crew, they sank 13 vessels. Based on the official U.S. Navy report, they sank 11. Now you'll see those two swallow-tail flags down at the bottom, and those represent what are called sampans or junks. Alright, so like in today's Navy, you don't let any other vessel get close to you while you're on patrol. And so these two junks or sampans or fishing vessels got a little too close for Croaker comfort, and they had deck guns at the time, and they took out those two junks or sampans. You'll also see the Kangaroo. The USS Croaker had 6 war patrols in World War II, and 4 of the patrols, they were home ported in Fremantle, Australia, which meant that by putting a kangaroo on their flag, they're honoring Australia by being such a good home port and a home host. Alright, let's continue on. And a little farther down USS Croaker's subsail or conning tower is her hull number. Has always remained the same at 246. So in World War II she was SS 246. In her hunter-killer conversion she was SSK 246. Then she turned into an AGSS 246, which is an auxiliary general submarine, and then an unidentified submarine towards the very end of her life as an IXSS 246. Alright, so they kind of declassified the sub, or and came up with the IXSS hull classification towards the very end of her life in 1971. Right, and right above that you'll see her ribbons. Right, so 4 of the ribbons are from World War II. 1 of the ribbons is from the 1950s. And so with the ribbons you always start at the top left, going down to the bottom right. And so what we have is her Navy Unit Commendation Medal. That's the green one in the upper left. And that was won and awarded during her first war patrol when she sank 4 Japanese vessels. Next to that, the blue is the American Campaign Medal. On the second row, the yellow is the Asiatic Pacific Campaign Medal with 3 battle stars, representing her 3 awards for 3 of her 6 war patrols. In the middle, you have the World War II Victory Ribbon, which is the red flanked by the 2 yellow. And then at the lower right, you have the 1950s National Defense Medal. So those represent the awards and the ribbons that USS Croaker was awarded through her life from 1944 up through 1971. Alright, let's go check out the USS Little Rock. Okay, moving on from the Croaker, we're now going to take a look at the USS Little Rock. And the first thing I'd like to point out are those 2 rows of windows up there. Alright, so why would the USS Little Rock have 2 rows of windows? Usually you only have 1 with the pilot house, but since USS Little Rock was a flagship, the lower set of windows, much larger, was for the flag deck. Alright, so that's the flag bridge, or the Admiral's Bridge, is that lower rung of windows, and above that is the pilot house where the captain would actually control this particular vessel. Alright, but the Admiral, when he was on board, monitored and controlled the fleet from the flag bridge, and so that's that set of windows that you see before you. All right, now we got a lot of decorations and awards to show here, so let's check that out. Okay, so right next to the pilot house, what you see, again, that upper row of windows, you'll see a lot of the USS Little Rock's awards and decorations. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in there, and I'm going to talk about those ribbons and the DC, the red DC, and the E's that you see painted on USS Little Rock. So for the USS Little Rock, you'll see the row of 6 ribbons on the right-hand side. And like the USS Croaker, the first one in the top left is a Navy unit commendation. In the middle there, we have the Battle E efficiency ribbon with an E painted in the middle of the ribbon, which means that she won it twice. To the right of that is the Navy Expeditionary ribbon. Down below, in the second row, we have the National Defense, like USS Croaker. The World War II Victory Medal in the middle there, and that turquoise blue is a Sea Service Deployment ribbon. Alright, and then you'll see the red DC and the double E's. Again, those were during deployments, fleets would compete against each other for battle readiness. And whoever accomplished that task or that mission the quickest would win a Battle E. Now the Croaker does have a Battle E as well, but the USS Little Rock painted each individual award. So we have a DC award for damage control, we have an electronic or an electrical communication award, you'll see the white large E, which represents the overall Battle E. Alright, so as you look down USS Little Rock, even on her stacks, you'll see C for communications, E for engineering, and you'll see the various letters painted on in different colors. Now for this medallion, you'll see it says United States 6th Fleet, and the ribbon that the eagle is holding in front of the shield says Power for Peace. Now Power for Peace was a 20-year celebration in 1968 in the 6th Fleet in the Mediterranean, where there was a parade of about 50 ships. Now one of the cool things is, because USS Little Rock was the flagship at that time, you had the 50 ships in 2 columns, and the USS Little Rock sailed against them in the middle between the 2 columns. And again, that was 1968 to celebrate the 20th anniversary, so 1948, of the Power for Peace movement within the U.S. Navy. You can also see from the promenade USS Little Rock's signal or call flags, which are the 4 in the middle, beginning with November at the top, which is blue and white. Above that, though, we fly, in honor of the Little Rock, we fly the Arkansas flag, and there she unfurls. That's good. She's unfouled, so to speak. Oh good, and we get a nice view of them. We got some nice wind going on. I also like to highlight down there at the bottom, the last flag is a Roadrunner flag. All right, so you can see that. The Roadrunner flag was a historic flag to the ship, so when they would replenish at sea, you know, most ships have a song that they would play, so when you're breaking away from your replenishment, you'd play a song. So the USS Little Rock would play the Beep Beep from the Roadrunner, and they would hoist up the Roadrunner flag as they were pulling away. And so we like to fly that in honor of her service in the 60s and 70s. So you're seeing the nose of the USS the Sullivans painted in blue. Alright, USS Little Rock also has that, but she's easier to see here from the Sullivans. Now what does that mean? Alright, so when you for any sailor that has not crossed the equator, you are considered a pollywog. If you do cross the equator, there is the Order of the Shellback. All right, and there's a ceremony and kind of what we'd call like a hazing ceremony to go from a pollywog to a shellback. If you cross the Arctic Circle or do maneuvers or trainings in the Arctic Circle, you are part of the Order of the Blue Nose. And that's what that represents right there. So you can paint the nose of your ship blue to say that we've been through the Arctic Circle. And now the USS the Sullivans and USS Little Rock, both with United Nations expeditionary forces and trainings, were in the Arctic Circle. And here with all of our ships we see the ribbons of USS the Sullivans and her numerous battle E's that she won, slashed there next to the one large E. So you would paint on the one E, and then every subsequent time you secured the Battle Efficiency Award, you can paint a dash. So you'll see that the USS the Sullivans has 9 ribbons from her life from 1943 through 1965. And again, starting in the upper left, going down to the lower right, we have the blue American campaign. We also have the yellow Asiatic Pacific campaign ribbon with battle stars. So USS the Sullivans was awarded 9 battle stars. And so they're represented by 1 large star with 4 around it. You also have the World War II Victory Medal. Going on to the second row, you have, again, as with all 3 of our vessels, the National Defense Ribbon. Then you have a Korean service, which is new and pretty exclusive to USS the Sullivans. You have the Korean service, the blue with the 2 stars. You have a Navy Occupation Service ribbon. Moving on to the third row, you then have the United Nations service. As I was just mentioning, USS the Sullivans and USS Little Rock both worked with the UN Expeditionary Forces in the Arctic Circle. Then you have the Philippine Liberation ribbon, and rounding it out, you have the Korean Presidential Unit. Now, during World War II, USS the Sullivans was attached to DESRON, which stands for Destroyer Squadron, DESRON 52. But in her Korean service, she was attached to DESRON, or Destroyer Squadron 20, a collection of 8 Fletcher-class destroyers that went on a round-the-world cruise and just so happened to stop in Korea for 4 months. And what they did was they bombarded stockyards, rail yards, bridges, like the infrastructure. Right, so I'm going to talk about that a little more in a bit. But there's the ribbons for USS the Sullivans. All right, and let's head to her scoreboard now. So now what we're looking at is the scoreboard for USS the Sullivans. All right, I have a little dispute about this, and so I'll tell you about that in a minute. But you'll see the plane with 8 Japanese flags underneath it, and that represents the 8 planes that USS the Sullivans shot down during World War II service. Right next to her, you'll see a beachhead. All right, that actually looks like a really nice beach. There's a palm tree, nice clear sand and water, but those represented the battles off of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. So USS the Sullivans was there at Okinawa, was there at Iwo Jima, bombarding the shorelines and also protecting the fleet from the kamikaze threat. Now, as curator, it's my job to really get down into the history of the vessels, and I have read the full war diary from USS the Sullivans, and instead of 8 planes, I actually counted, they shot down 12 Japanese planes. So I would actually like to expand that out. I would like to verify it with a couple other naval historians. But again, I counted 12 planes that the USS the Sullivan shot down in her war diary of World War II. And I would also like to add her Korean service with some, again, rail yards, rolling stock, bridges, tunnels, and that's what Desron 20 in the Korean War was doing. They were bombarding, again, like the submarine, taking away the material to wage war against you. Let's carry on now to the Sullivan Flags. Now these are the most important flags to me here as curator at the Naval Park, and they're slightly fouled. There we go. So these are the 3 honorary flags that we fly on USS the Sullivans. The bottom one representing the shamrock, the ubiquitous clover that you see all over the ship, most especially on the forward stack. Right above that we fly the Iowa state flag, which represents the state where the 5 Sullivan brothers came from. And above that is the 5 Gold Star service flag representing the 5 brothers killed on the USS Juneau. So USS the Sullivans DD 537 and USS the Sullivans DDG 68, currently in active service, are the only 2 ships in the Navy to be able to fly this 5-star gold service flag, and it's an honor to do so, representing the sacrifice of the Sullivans and what that family meant to World War II. I'm waiting for it to unfoul. There we go. So in addition to becoming an expert on all of her awards, all of the ship's awards and decorations, you can also read specifically, we put out historical service signs, and so you can visit and read all 3 of the ship's histories just standing right on the promenade. I hope you enjoyed this promenade tour of our 3 ships here at the Buffalo Naval Park. And again, you can now be an expert in all the awards, decorations, flags, and things that you see here at the Buffalo Naval Park, walking along the promenade, maybe one of those 350,000 people that walk by every year. We hope you come aboard and enjoy the ships for yourself. And if you like this video, please subscribe, ring the bell, all right, post a comment if you have any questions or thoughts, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks very much.